Today is going to be a little bit different, right? So we're not going to go into nitty-gritty research topics. We're not going to do top fives today. We are actually going to be talking about the emotional aspect of a move like this, where you're leaving everything you know behind and you're embarking on an adventure that you actually don't know how it's going to go. I haven't found much of this on YouTube, so if you're in a situation like this and you are struggling, or you are considering about making a move like this, then stick around and I'll just talk to you about my experience and some tips that I figured out are working for me or for us, and hopefully they can help you too. As you know, my family, so myself, our child and my husband are moving to Norway either next month or the month after. And it is a move that hasn't happened overnight. You have most likely heard in one of my previous videos what led to this, why we decided the way we decided. But essentially we're going ahead, and that brings with it many aspects, you could say, of not just dealing with practical stuff like relocating things, pets and all of that, everything I've talked about before, but also the emotional aspect. So my partner and I have lived here for over a decade now, so we have essentially met people along the way, kind of started putting down our roots. That now moving to Norway means that we have to essentially unplug all of that. We've come to call UK a home. Not the best of homes, but still a home. Now, I don't know how you are, but when I live in a place, so I lived in Czech Republic, Japan, and UK, I don't generally miss the place when I'm away from it. Though when I remember it, I always remember a specific aspect of it, like Czech Republic. I'd remember always these massive fields when you drive down a country road. Japan, I'll always remember temples tucked away on like side streets. In UK, I'll remember the leafy greenery. So it's not going to be the country in itself that I'm going to miss. It's going to be the people that I'm essentially leaving behind. Friends that I have made over the years. It's also about leaving what you know. So in UK, we know how things work. We know what to expect. We know the language, so that makes everything easier as well. So there are a lot of feelings of nostalgia, sadness, a lot of uncertainty, maybe a bit of fear of, can we actually get something similar in Norway? Because essentially the culture is so different. The society works differently that it's unreasonable to expect that you can get like for like wherever you move in, whichever country, unless you're moving within, how would I call it, a similar country, let's say from Czech Republic to Slovakia. It's not that different. Or Germany to Austria, Spain to Portugal. You get my point. Countries that reside close to each other are more or less similar. But when you're going from Czech Republic to UK, or UK to Norway, or UK to Japan, you're essentially jumping through different cultural contexts, different societies, and it'll be a period of adjustment, that's for sure. But one of the big things that we were, I wouldn't say struggling with, but when we were making the decision, considering quite a bit, is this aspect of leaving everything behind, of leaving the people, the certainty and the safety of knowing what's going on. And that has been kind of hard to navigate because we're going to Norway, a Scandinavian country that does work differently. Although my partner has already been there for 2 weeks, and so far he seems excited because the people there are much nicer in a way than here in UK. Like they're like much more helpful and much more selfless is actually the right word. It's still kind of the surface. We haven't really lived there, or I haven't even been there yet. It's just my partner. That we don't know how it is deeper underneath that surface? As in, is that always going to be the case? Like, is that where we're going to stay for the rest of our life? Or are we going to be able to make meaningful relationships? Are we going to be able to meet people beyond that? Have conversations beyond helping, doing things? And that's for now an unknown, and it will remain unknown until we've lived out for a while. But is that unknown that makes things harder? When I talk about feeling familiar in a place here in UK and leaving that behind, what I mean is the way that things work, your habits, your schedules, your routines. For me, I don't know if I'll be able to replace our routine like for like. How is that going to impact me and our daughter? Because my partner is essentially going to be going to work. His change to routine isn't that big, whereas my daughter and I, because I work from home and our daughter goes to nursery, we're going to have to adjust to new ways of doing things. I don't know where I'm going to be taking her swimming. I don't know how it's going to go in nursery for her. I don't know myself how I'm going to integrate with the other mums, let's say, that I meet at nursery. Or are there even baby groups? So it is a lot of uncertainty. And yes, there is support in Norway from the other wives of the people that work in the company. They have been very helpful and very open and trying to like assure me that yes, there are things happening, and you know, you can definitely find whatever you need. But you don't know until you're there, until you figure these things out. So the familiarity, the knowing of what's going to happen next, the routine, the schedules, we're going to essentially, excuse me, throw that out the window and at first hope for the best. Second, try not to lose our plot. And third, just try and manage our emotional response to that on a day-to-day basis, because especially with a toddler who are very routine based, so they know what's happening, so they kind of feel in control, that's going to be upsetting. And I kind of think that she might not take it that well. She might struggle for the first few days, just new place, new experiences, lack of routine. And obviously that may then reflect on me as her primary carer, and that may then reflect on our family dynamic. So again, that's another aspect that we need to be thinking about. And if you have a family and you're thinking about making that move, that may also be something for you to think about as well. How can you maintain a semblance of routine in your life post-move or very shortly after you've moved, so that all of you are more or less content? Not necessarily happy, not necessarily jumping for joy, but not feeling like down or overwhelmed is a better word. Not feeling overwhelmed as much. Trying to keep as much of that routine. So same time wakings, similar breakfasts. And then if, let's say, your child goes to nursery in the morning, but until you secure a place, take them out. Or just substitute activities at the times that they were doing something else. That's essentially the way I am hoping to do it. We're also going to be leaving familiar places behind. So here in Wales, we know finally, after living here for 2 years, we can just hop in the car and drive to a place without a sat-nav. It was the same in Manchester when we lived there. We could walk places and know where we're going to end up. And I know there's just a period of adjustment. We'll get to know the geographical layout of the place where we move in. But still, it is that one barrier that you just have to get over. But that one barrier, that one alienation aspect at first, that's just not going to make it feel like home, if that makes sense. Because at first we will have to drive around with sat-nav, or at least I will. My partner probably not, because he's already been there for 2 weeks and he more or less knows where things are. And whilst I find that exciting, exploring new places, it's still a bit like, I don't know where I'm gonna go. I don't know where things are. So yeah, leaving the familiar behind in terms of places is going to be interesting, but also challenging at the same time, making it definitely feel like a different place, an alien place at first. Another aspect of the whole move that I've already mentioned is leaving people behind, leaving friends. And like I said, that for us is a big thing because we have a support network here in the UK. So my partner and I have lived in the UK without our families. Our respective families are still back in our home countries. So we had to essentially build our support network via friendships that have taken 10 years, some of them. And so leaving that behind means we're going to Norway where we essentially don't have that support network. We don't have that friend who we can call on a Wednesday and be like, hey, can you come and look after our cat because we're going away for a weekend? We're not going to have that. We're not going to have friends that we can call on the day and be like, hey, do you want to join me in a park for a picnic? That'd be pretty cool. We're not going to have that. And I know I'm focusing a lot on what we're not gonna have when we leave the UK, but that's kind of the point. That's kind of the heart of the poodle of this whole leaving the UK. We are leaving things behind. We are leaving things here, and that is okay. It is okay to focus on what you're not gonna have, as long as you then can focus on how you can get it in that new place, how you can rebuild what you've had in the new place. So yes, here we will leave the friends behind, we will leave our support network, but we can rebuild it in Norway. And at the moment, it is not as hard to think about as it was in the beginning. For example, I just recently made a great friend that I wish I had known for longer than, how long have we known each other for? 6-7 months. It's that kind of person that you meet and you immediately click with. And I'm thinking, well, great. Now I'm buggering off to a different country. Like what, how fair is that, right? And it's tough. It's tough leaving people behind. And if you have a family, let's say like your parents, and you've ever traveled anywhere or you're thinking about making that move, leaving family behind or friends behind can be scary and it can be daunting. And for a lot of people, it can be a deal breaker. For us, it was that one thing that we knew and we know we're gonna miss. We also know that not all those who wander are lost. I just remember that. You better remember that as well. I don't often quote things because I don't often remember, but this one is quite well placed because just because we go into Norway does not mean we're lost, or it does not mean we are losing our friendships here. Because hey, Facebook, Zoom, flight tickets, right? Like there are so many ways to still keep in touch with people these days that, yeah, like online cannot replace the one-to-one interaction or the in-person interaction 100%, but it can be a bridge between the two moments when you see each other. I see my parents, my family, about 3 times a week online and about once a year in person. For me, that's manageable. I don't mind it. It works. For my mom, however, she finds it difficult. I remember we started off with her seeing me at least 4 times a year, and like majority of the time online when we were not seeing each other. So every person has different tolerances. For us, my partner and I, we are more accustomed to put it this way, leaving people behind. Doesn't make it any easier, doesn't make it any more enjoyable, doesn't make it any, you know, it is hard. It always is, and it always is gonna be, because we are human, we're social creatures, we need other humans. But navigating that particular topic is very personal and very, very emotional. I think at the moment it's easier for me to talk about because I haven't left anyone behind yet. Neither of us have. Ask me again when we move to Norway, and that might be a different thing. There may be challenges in keeping in touch with people long distance. So I am the kind of person who sucks at maintaining long distance friendships, to be honest. I get forgetful about messaging back because I'm mainly a messaging kind of person. It tends to have the relationships fizzle out. But I have learned over the years as well that if something really matters to you, you really make it work. And some friendships just naturally draw to a close. No friendships are, not no friendships, not all friendships are for the rest of our lives. And the people that I have spoken with and that over the years we have sort of drifted apart and stopped messaging, I still remember them fondly. I still think about them sometimes, and sometimes I reach out to them. Not always do they respond. May have forgotten, may have been unhappy with me. Anything can happen, right? But I think this time around, especially with some of the people I have met over the past 2 years especially, I think I will be putting more effort into those friendships because, and again, it depends on what stage in life are you. I find that the older I get, I know I look young, no, the older I get, the more appreciative I am of the people around me, the more appreciative I am of the friendships I have made, because they do start becoming rare. Genuine relationships, genuine friendships. I find that the older you get, yes, you sort of lose some of the pretense of like pretending or trying to be someone you're not. You become more genuine. But it's also harder to find other genuine people. Because by this age, or not by this age, the older you get, you are already set in your ways. You already have set friendships. And so to find a new good friend as you get older gets a bit harder, because people can sometimes be saturated with other people, with other friends, and so they may not be willing to let you in. Other people might be like, oh hell yeah, come join the party. But it's hard to find, and so I have come to appreciate the friendships I have made. And I think that's going to be one of the ways that I'll be coping going forward, is to value the friendships I have and making sure I maintain them. Because that's going to be one of the ways of not feeling so alone and lonely when in a new place. So now that essentially you know the top 2 things that are causing anxieties and uncertainties in our life regarding this move and emotional distress, the leaving the UK and the familiarity and leaving the people, it's now a matter of starting over, and how is that going to work? Can we get like for like I mentioned? Probably not. So how can we recreate it, and how much of a change is that going to be? How much of an adjustment? And the answer I have at the moment is work. Friendships, life, and home takes work. They don't happen overnight. They will take weeks, months, if not years. And when you put it in perspective, when you start thinking about it in that way, a lot of people can feel discouraged with a move like this. A lot of people can have an amazing opportunity in a different country, but because they'll be there on their own for potentially a substantial amount of time, they might not be able to stomach it. And I know people who had great opportunities, went for them, but then they weren't able to handle that isolation for a certain amount of time, and they ended up coming back. We all have different tolerance levels, but for my partner and I, we are essentially moving to stay, potentially. And so in order to recreate what we have here, we will need to integrate with the society. And frankly, that's something I think we're both excited about. So like I say, he's been there for 2 weeks already, and the people there are very accepting, the people in the company. And they invite him for things and make sure that he's comfortable and he's there happy. And from what I've read so far, Norway also appreciates volunteering, and that's something I've been doing as well here in UK or in Japan. And it's a great way to meet people. So volunteering, joining clubs and societies, essentially exposing ourselves to the culture and to the people as much as possible. Language classes, another great one. Although that mainly connects you with other foreigners, but that's also absolutely fine, because your new support network does not have to be made of solely of locals. It can be a healthy mix of anyone and everyone, really. And so whilst we don't know how things are gonna go, how quickly are we gonna be able to do an almost like for like substitute, there are still ways of exploring and trying to get that done. And those ways, we don't know how challenging they're gonna be, but again, we won't know until we try. And I think that's kind of keeping us afloat at the moment, being the kind of people who want to give things a shot, the best shot we can, and see if they work out. Because at the end, if they don't work out and we've tried our best, then we can at least be like, yeah, we did our best, it didn't work. Let's try something different. But that's without denying the fact that it will be lonely at first. And the isolation will be trying for all of us, I think.